You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's July 12th, 2021. And, well, what is going on with gold? Are you frustrated? Have you hit your limit? Has it all gotten to be too much for you? Well, maybe certain interests, certain segments of society, of the world, that's what they're hoping for, that you finally give up and who knows, maybe even buy cryptocurrencies with the proceeds of your precious metal sales. Well, there are definitely trends taking place. There are reasons why you should not give up hope yet. You know what they say, it's always darkest before the light. Well, someone who's been in the light for a long time, I'm talking about Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin, and you find him at milesfranklin.com, is with us here to explain why you shouldn't give up the ship. Yeah, Andy, it's great to have you back. So, what do you say to somebody who's just watched the price look like it was going to hit 2,000 and then it just retreated back, broke 1,800, looked like it was on its way of the retest of prior lows, and now it looks like it's kind of stabilized?
I'd say you haven't been watching the market long enough, because this is the same type of market action that we've seen as long as I've been doing this. And, Kerry, I think you often hear the old statement, don't do as I do, or don't do as I do, or don't do as I say, do as I do, rather. And I think the important thing here is that you have to ignore the rhetoric and the noise, and look what's happening to with the biggest money in the world. You're seeing massive deliveries off of Comex, huge deliveries that, in fact, we've already delivered over 200 million ounces of silver off of Comex, which outpaces last year, which was a record year by a long shot. And you're seeing the wealthiest, most influential private traders in the world, mostly sovereign wealth funds and to a lesser extent family offices, draining Comex of metal. And I think whether you're talking the central banks, the commercial banks, or the sovereign wealth funds and or the family offices, they have been using the levered paper price to give them cover for taking physical possession. And so in the end, I think that this is about a long-term play. This is playing for the end of the game. And one of the things that really will frustrate people, I think, is expecting things to move, A, in a linear, logical fashion, and B, not being able to deal with these counterintuitive takedowns. But you have to take a step back and ask yourself, why is it happening? And I think it's happening kind of like what you were saying, to convince people to move in the wrong direction, to misdirect people. It's the art of war. Beat your opponent without throwing a punch. In this case, it's through levered futures contracts and rhetoric. But Kerry, I'll tell you that nothing has changed. And quite frankly, the only thing that has changed is that we're seeing an acceleration in deliveries of gold and silver off the Comex, and these are being delivered to the most sophisticated private investors in the world. So do as I do, not as I say, would be my advice in this case, and trust your gut. And, I think a price that moves to the moon too quick, the old saying, be careful what you wish for. I think with that comes, some pretty maybe interesting or frightening revelations. So at this point right now, honestly, yeah, maybe people say it's easy for me to say this, but I mean it. You should be glad if you're accumulating. This is a subsidy. This is a way to get more metal for your dollar, which is losing value precipitously at a discount. So hang on, have strong fingertips, turn off your computer if you have to, and trust your gut. And look at what the biggest money in the world has been doing now for 4 years, and it's increasing this year, not decreasing. The price has always been the tool of misdirection, that the preferred tool of misdirection that the cartel uses. Most people don't lift up the hood and look underneath it. They just look at the price, and that often is enough to create a reality or a perception of reality that allows the big money to reposition without being really pushed out of their trade by a world where information travels like that, you know?
Right. So when you say this, like Comex, we talked about this a while ago. It's become a delivery market rather than a hedge market. And then, you look at other things that are happening. We always thought that Basel III would really have an impact.
I still think it will, by the way, and I'd like to address that in a moment after your question.
Yeah, for the time being, though, it's become a big yawn, hasn't it?
Well, here's the thing. I think people are missing, for me, the reserve ratio requirement deal has never meant squat to me. I mean, yeah, it has an implication, and it ought to have an effect. Now, it's a little, you kind of got to get in the weeds with the reserve ratio. The UK just was able to finagle some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Some sort of a reprieve from having to, as it relates to settlement. And the question is it settlement of only physical metal, or is it settlement of futures as well? What they're trying to do when already Europe and Switzerland and when I say Europe and Switzerland, I know Switzerland's part of Europe, but in terms of Switzerland's, they are autonomous really from the Union. They are their own entity. So Switzerland and the rest of the EU have already signed on to it. If the London Metals Association or the LBMA is able to sidestep the Basel III agreement, which everyone else in the world is agreeing to do, I think it's just going to hasten the speed at which people say, screw London, and we see price being set more in other parts of the world, maybe in Asia and in the United Arab Emirates and in other places of the world where people are interested in real price discovery. But as far as Basel III, it's never been the reserve ratio requirements that had really meant anything to me. What has meant something to me regarding Basel III, and it's really the only thing that matters to me, and it might be the biggest event of my career, is the reclassification of gold as the world's only other tier one reserve. Ask yourself that question. Take a step back from everything else. Why the hell would the Bank of International Settlements reclassify gold after 75 years of it only being dollars as the world's only other tier one reserve asset? And the answer is they wouldn't unless it was very important. Now you take a step back further and say, well, look at the amount of acquisition by the central bank since 2017, continuing today. Look at the amount of deliveries off of Comex by the sovereign wealth funds, accelerating here today. So in other words, yes, the reserve requirements would be nice, and it would maybe allow for a greater price setting or a greater price discovery, a more realistic one, rather. But that's not really, to me, the point. I think ultimately the rest of the world is going to turn away from London and their manipulations and move to a part of the world that has embraced the Basel III agreement, that is looking for more of an accurate reflection of price. I do think that'll happen. But in the meantime, the only thing that I take from Basel III that means anything to me is that the world is now considers gold a riskless asset, a tier one reserve. And from that, it tells me that gold will be center in whatever comes next. And yeah, the reserve requirements would have been great if the implementation that we saw June 28th would have had a greater effect. But to me, it was like a fuse being lit, because don't forget that it's January 1, 2022, when the US and the UK were supposed to get in line. Now, the UK is kind of finagling that. The US hasn't said anything yet. If the US banks do fall into line regarding the Basel III agreement, you'll see some substantive changes. In the meantime, what I take away from it more than anything is the reclassification of gold. And I think that's huge.
All right. Well, I think you've said it, and I think I tend to agree with you. things are definitely changing. Often they don't happen in accordance with anyone's timetable, but I think that the die has been cast. And if you haven't bought your metal yet, hey, now's as good a time as any, maybe better than most, because the price is down and, well, it might stay down for a while. And then again, summers recently have been a time when precious metals for the past couple of years, past 3 years, have really taken off in July and August. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to be the case this year.
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Torque Resources is an exploration company establishing a portfolio of premier copper-gold early-stage projects in Chile. Torque's management and technical teams have a strong track record of raising capital, discovery, and monetization of exploration successes. The company's Margarita copper-gold project is located within the prolific coastal Cordillera Belt in Chile, which hosts some of the world's largest and most profitable copper mines. The Margarita project possesses excellent discovery potential for a major copper discovery due to the strength of the alteration system, large-scale magnetic targets, and the presence of copper oxide mineralization. Drilling is anticipated to begin in Q3 of this year. Torque trades in Canada under TORQ and on the OTC under TRBMF. To learn more, go to torqueresources.com. That's torqueresources.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Yeah, as far as price, I think price will take care of itself. The demand on the physical side has been extraordinary. The supply has been quite weak, just like many other supply chains that we've seen around the world that are struggling. I don't think that we get an accurate reflection of price in this industry, Kerry, not at all. And certainly that was one of the things people were hoping for with the Basel III reserve ratio requirements. But here again, ultimately, price will go much higher. And I think the die has already been cast. And when you see the biggest money in the world go to such great lengths since 2017 to take possession of metal and acquire it at these subsidized prices, I do think the writing is on the wall. And this is one of those deals where you have to do what the big money is doing, not listen to the conventional wisdom or the rhetoric that we see coming out of the mouthpieces. Price will take care of itself. And that I do mean, I do believe, and I mean that wholeheartedly, it will take care of itself. And look, when I buy gold and silver, Kerry, it's not to become wealthy. It is wealth. You're not buying it as an investment where the short-term trends are really, and the short-term movements are maybe a little bit more important in an investment. This is money that I think you put away. You put away for the end of the game. You put away and hope you never need to use it. If you do, you're damn glad you have it. Now, using it doesn't have to be for an emergency like a lot of people think. Shit hits the fan and now you need to use gold to buy bread or what have you. No, that's not it. It's also for an opportunity too. And if not, you give it to your family, your children, a trust, your grandchildren, a charity, whatever it may be. It's a wonderful way to pass immutable wealth on to future generations. Wealth that you can, I think, rest assured that will be worth something someday when, the dollar bills in our wallet, will be hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian. And I think those days are closer than we think, actually. And especially when we see what's going on in the reverse repo market and the news from Wells Fargo, I think this only hastens the Fed's desire to create a Fed coin, to usurp and sidestep the commercial banks, which really have no interest in lending money right now, which is kind of fouling up the best laid plans of the Federal Reserve. So these are interesting times and a lot is happening. And I think change is afoot. And I think you own gold and silver not to get wealthy, but to preserve your wealth and to protect you in times of great uncertainty like we're seeing right now.
Yeah, great uncertainty. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So, Andy, just tell us how we connect with you, how we order bullion from Miles Franklin.
So just if your listeners would send me an email personally at Andy at Miles Franklin and mention the Financial Survival Network, I will make sure that they get the best price in the industry. We're licensed, we're bonded. That is an anomaly in this industry. It might be the only major company that is. Minnesota, where our corporate office is located, is the only state in America that requires this bonding and this licensing. We are building a new website, Carrie, but we're still a month or two away from its completion. It's taking longer than I would have hoped. So we're old school, and everything is done offline. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But send me an email. We'll send you, again, that's Andy at Miles Franklin. We'll send you an updated inventory. We update it a couple times per week. And we won't be undersold. And it's going to be the safest transaction in the industry. And we'll give you advice, and we can talk politics and geopolitics and economics. And all my brokers have been personally trained by me. Most of them are lifelong friends and or family. We're a unique company where almost everyone who works for me is either family or people I go back to literally elementary school with. So we've created a family atmosphere where we strive to do what's right and make sure people have a good experience.
And that's what it's all about. And honestly, you've heard me say it before, Andy, like if you haven't bought bullion before, this is your first time, better you should call somebody, better you get the measure of the company that you're dealing with, how they treat you. On a website, yeah, it's real easy to just click a couple buttons and put in your wire info, and then you hope for the best. I've always said, and I've been working with Andy over 10 years now, and I've always said, in fact, I used to use this slogan, when you buy, they ship, meaning when you buy from Andy, it's going to get shipped. You're not going to get excuses. You're not going to get delays, interminable delays, and have somebody arbitraging your order. Just not going to happen here. Andy, appreciate it. Got a question for Andy? You can send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. I'll forward it off to him, and go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for your free newsletter. Andy, can't thank you enough for coming on. I know you're super busy with your move and all this personal stuff going on, but I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Kerry. I've always been so honored to be associated with a man of your character, and I'm always here when you need me. I love chatting with your listeners, and I'll be here. Look, we live in a world where everything keeps changing like this. If we see something interesting, I'm happy to jump on. And but one last thing, and I'll let you go. Do not be dissuaded or knocked off the bull by the yawn that has been the first implementation of the reserve requirement ratio. Too much has been made of that. Focus on the big picture. Gold is the only other riskless asset in the world, the only other tier one reserve in the world next to US dollars. The banks consider it as good as cash, and they've been massively accumulating it for 4 years, almost 5, and they're continuing to do it and accelerating it off of Comex. That's what you need to focus on. Price will take care of itself, and that's what I mean. When the biggest money in the world front runs markets and uses price as a tool of misdirection, as a cover, you can bet your bottom dollar that before long we'll see that cover pulled off, and it will be off to the races, and the big money will make more money on the upside than they did on holding it down on the down. Because in the end, Kerry, you can only manipulate markets or by pushing them in the direction that they're going, at least over an extended period of time. Anyways, it's always good to see you. You stay well. I do hope to chat with you soon. And again, that's Andy at Miles Franklin. Mention the Financial Survival Network, and I will personally make sure your listeners get the best price and the best service in North America.
All right. We appreciate that, Andy. We'll talk to you again real soon. Good luck with the move.
And you too, buddy.
Thanks.
Stay well.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.